PIV shaped a sound that has been moving the dance floors from Amsterdam to Ibiza and all over the world over the past decade. Pluck has founded the label in 2015. From the early days of PIV, there have been artists like Chris Tussie and Doman that really have become influential artists in the house music scene. And nowadays PIV is also trying to push a new wave of talent, which is interesting to keep an eye on. Today we're diving into the sound and techniques that you can use to create a PIV style track yourself. And now let's dive into the video. So when deciding on how to structure this video, I decided that I would already start with the drums. I feel like in this PIV style, the part where the most people struggle is really to get the synths in a proper way. I wanted to spend a bit more attention to that part. However, I will still go over the drums real quick. So let me first play you what the drums sound like. And let me now show you step by step what layers are included. A kick from the motion pack. Then there is this perk loop, which is all kind of bongo-ish sounds. A higher top loop. And some shakers. A clap and an open head. And then a head which is more shuffled, so contributes to the groove even further. Some percussion and a clap on the offbeats. Then a very interesting one, which is this minimal loop. Almost kind of a grainish sound, which is really a distinctive element of the PIV sound, layered with this little perk loop and a more kind of organic slice from a loop. And then this kick fill with a filter on it right here, so it's a bit less prominent than the kick that we actually use in the drop. And a crash layered on top of that, which sounds like this. The drums sound tight, and the main reason for that is this transient processor on the bus with the release set to -58%, which makes sure that the release on everything except the kick is turned down, which really gives you that tight sound. And if I turn it off, it would sound like this. So same groove, but it's just a bit more tight and clean and leaves more space for all the synths, since this style is pretty synth heavy. So we really want to make sure that the drums sound good. So that's it for the drums, and let's now move on to a pattern, which in my opinion is the most interesting part of this style. So what I like to do for this style is to load in a few sounds beforehand. So a bass line, which in this case is this bass called Erase from our pack, with a little sidechain on it, so we can start playing around with it right away. And it's 2 Uno wavetables, 1 pitch down 2 octaves, 1 pitch down 1 octave with a MG Low 24 filter. Then we have this dub chord right here, which sounds like this. And it really has this mellow chord sound, mainly because LFO 2, which is set to half a bar, is linked to all kind of parameters, including the cutoff of the filter with a lot of resonance. You can see that there's a lot of movement, and if I would bypass all destinations, just adds that bit of movement that you want. Then I loaded an organ, which is from Pigments. I loaded it through Analog Lab. A step, which is from the Motion Pack. And those are the elements we are going to start working with. So I really like to kind of work dynamically instead of starting with just the bass, I like to choose like a root note in the bass, then decide some kind of starting rhythm, see how we can incorporate all the other elements in it. Before you start, also make sure that there is some swing on your project. So right here I set the main swing to 25%, which just adds that extra groove to the track. Right here we're just going to start with choosing some kind of root note for the track. And a lot of people struggle with actually understanding how you can make a funky bass line and layer chords on top of that. But for that, I'm going to show you this trick where you can choose a helper scale in FL Studio, which is here in the scale highlighting section. And then you select F sharp, since that's the note take as root note. And then you go there again, and then you select the minor pentatonic scale, which was already selected for me, which is a scale that is really useful if you're trying to achieve this PIV kind of sound. I can immediately show you what I mean with that. So let's load this organ synth right here, and then we are on F sharp. And all the white notes right now are in our minor pentatonic scale. And the most common chord that is being used in these kind of tracks is a simple minor jazz chord, which is a minor 7th chord, and that looks like this. And basically the minor chord is the basis, and then you start adding different notes and creating inversions to really create some interesting variation. So let's say we have this chord right here, we delete this note right here, and we put this 1 octave down. And then it seems like a totally different chord, which it kind of is not. So let's see what that sounds like. Often people get confused, like this is a really random chord, but if you then just show them this, it makes a lot of sense already. So we're going to utilize this technique all over the track. Let's create an inversion and add another note. Something like this is a nice start, and then we can also add the dub chord already. So this chord, you could place it here, or you place it on a perfect 5th. Or you do both. We can try to kind of combine that. Okay, let's also quickly add those elements to a mixer slot. Some sidechain, and same for this one. A little low cut, so we can start testing it in the whole context already. Okay, so I don't really like this switch, but as you can hear, both of the notes could work. Let's see what this sounds like if we just put it like this. Let's bring it back in volume and add a little bit of delay on it as well. And right now the bass is still just one note, and we really want to start making it groove more. So you really start to create this interplay that I was talking about between the elements, instead of creating it all separately, which you can do, but for me this just works really well. As you can see, this gets really groovy real quick, and we stay in the key that we selected, and you can play around with a bit of different notes than the root notes you chose. That sounds nice. Let's copy that. immediately get that kind of PIV vibe. And now you just start playing around, making sure that everything is properly responding to each other. And this is just a matter of kind of trying things out, which is, in my opinion, always the best way to approach stuff like this. Of course, act like there's a whole kind of philosophy behind it, but in the end, a lot of it is trial and error, and I'm pretty confident that that is the case for most of the artists. And as you can now hear, all these elements separately kind of create the groove itself already on top of all the drum. Let's also link this to a mixer track. And I think a cool effect for this one could be a really short delay. Something like this, with a bandpass filter. So it kind of gets really wide, stereo I mean. A little bit of distortion. So this one is starting to sound nice as well. It can use some reverb as well. And I want it to be a bit more stereo. And then this organ synth is a bit dull right now, so let's boost the highs. And it can use some distortion as well. And then let's add a phase mistress, which is Sound Toys phase plugin, which is another effect that is being used a lot in this genre. You can do this by hand, utilizing filters and EQs, which gives you even more control. However, this is a really solid way to do it in a much quicker way. Okay, so now let's turn on all the elements again, see what it sounds like. I think we can layer the step with a drum element to make it sound a bit more organic, like this. Make it really short so it just gives you that extra attack. Maybe we can even put it on the same channel. Let's add a transient processor to that step. And now let's also add another EQ right here on the organ, and let's manually play around with it a little bit more as well. Okay, wait, that's not the organ. Really subtle changes, but kind of adding these small changes can do a lot to a track. So you will also at some point want to start at creating some more variation, really subtle, but with these elements you want to keep it interesting for like 5 minutes or something. So at some point you need to kind of leave something out, invert some chords, add another chord or anything like that, just to keep the sound interesting for the listener. So I created it as a new pattern. So I pitch down 2 chords 1 octave, and then we invert this right here. So then we copy the drums right here, and then you kind of extend the drop in a bit of a different way again. Let's also copy this to layer on the pre-drop. Of course, a vocal loop can spice it up a lot as well. For example, just for the first part of the drop, let's see. I see that this organ misses some delay and reverb, which is really essential. I think we can use the same echo boy as the dub chord to create some consistent effects. I like that variation as well. And then perhaps in the synth, let me see, in pigments, you would actually want to automate that right here. So it's linked to this macro right here. Last week, create automation. And then we do that for this part of the track. Okay, so that's nice. Let's move this automation down right here. And also add some vinyl crackle like this, just for the kind of old school vinyl vibe. And I also want to add another element, which is this Pluck, which can perfectly layer top of this, especially in the end with the bass line going like this, right here. And you can simply copy that into the Pluck. Okay, so something like this could work. Let's get rid of the low end and add a bit of sidechain and see how that sounds in the context as well. Okay, so we could like choose to only introduce that later on in another drop, and this way you introduce really subtle elements. Now let's make this unique again, and for example change this longer chord, add notes. A really short delay does the job really well on these kind of plugs. And this plug can also be a bit more stereo, like this. So then in an in-between part right here, you can basically get rid of most of the drums. Then again, of course, you want this fill before the next drop right here. Let's add a down filter like this, not too loud, too loud. Then for example in this part right here we can add an impact. So right now it's already pretty nice on how this is evolving. Of course, in a short tutorial like this, I won't be able to fully finish this and polish the whole track, but the overall idea is getting somewhere for sure. So now let's add a vocal loop on top of it, which works really well as well. So really something like this. I think I like this one. Let's add it to a mixer slot, create a filter. So in the first drop, we just filter it. And then let's say in the last drop, towards the last drop, it opens up like this. Little uplifter or something like this. And let's then quickly, as last part of this tutorial, copy this to the front of the track to create a little kind of intro, just for the more for the feeling. Like obviously it won't be a full finished track yet, however to create some kind of contrast is nice. So like this, then it starts like this. Let's also put the bass in a separate pattern, since we want to use that in the intro. Let's add a low cut to the master right here and make sure that it has some low cut in the beginning. So I hope you guys learned a lot about this kind of style, and if you guys want to see more videos on it, or for example a start to finish, make sure to let me know below, because then maybe we can do a longer video and cover it in more detail. If you want to check out the sounds that I used in this video, head over to the link in the description, where you will find an overview of all of our house sample packs. If you have any questions or suggestions, make sure to leave a comment down below, and I see you guys in the next video.